You were joining us yesterday. We had a conversation, and I think it really impacts everybody who you get to a certain age. Everyone knows someone either in the neighborhood or at work or even in the family who has suffered from cancer. But we had a conversation not only about the stress it puts on the patient, but as well on those people in the caregivers, the family or the closest friends who are looking out after these people. We did that as part of our regular segment on Wednesday mornings, Better Health with Trip Family Medicine. And we do this every Wednesday, different subject usually, but it's usually about your health. We take half an hour between 8:30 and 9 o'clock Wednesday mornings, have that discussion. And we do want to remind you, we'll have some of the medical professionals back next week. Tune in each Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning for Better Health, brought to you by Trip Family Medicine in Twin Falls, across from the post office on Fillmore Street. And remember, life's too short not to feel good. Something I came across over the course of the overnight. I was just getting ready for bed last night. Media Research Center. Media Research Center is a big organization that looks at media bias. That is generally liberal bias that you see when people are reporting stories. It's 8:45. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. 38 and some rain falling in some spots throughout the valley this morning. Media Research Center. In fact, Media Research Center is doing a cruise right now. I saw a post on Facebook last night from Cal Thomas. And he's in some Caribbean port, and he's looking off his cruise ship at some gigantic yacht, which has a helicopter parked on it. That's some serious cake somebody has when they can do that. I was in Nassau in the Bahamas once, about way back, early 1990s, and I remember we were on a boat, just a smaller boat, and we were going out to an island for a picnic, and we went through this particular area in the bay, and they had those massive, massive yachts. And a fellow on the boat was telling us that one of them had been owned by Bing Crosby, and Crosby used to come and spend his off days there, fly back home to work. And the yacht had been sold to someone else who basically liked parking it there and kept it there. Didn't use it much other than just to come to Nassau and sit on the deck. I have this. This comes from Media Research Center. Not necessarily about boats. It's kind of a wandering rabbit hole moment there on my part. I'm sorry about that. But this is Eagles of Death Metal frontman slams French gun control. And most of the American news media has skipped this story. Now, who is this guy, Jesse Hughes? His band was playing in that club in France when those filthy Islamic terrorists came running in and started shooting the place up a few months ago. And as we now know, they killed in excess of 125 people in the rampage throughout France's capital city. And he was talking to a French interviewer, and he went on to say that, and his language was rather, even in French, I think even in France they would blanch if they heard some of these words. And it takes a Frenchman a lot to get upset about. He went on to say that French gun control didn't stop a single person from dying. And if anyone can answer yes, I'd like to hear it, because I don't think so. I think the only thing that stopped it was some of the bravest men that I've ever seen in my life charging headfirst into the face of death with their firearms. ABC's Good Morning America, one of the few American outlets to actually cover this, gave it 21 seconds. There's a guy over in France, belongs to an American band, and he says France has gun control and it's bad. Meanwhile, in this country, guns are bad as well. And we here at the very big American network would like you to know that. And if you don't believe it, we'll keep repeating it until you do. This is over at Washington Times, which is a bit more what you'd call an alternative newspaper. They give you a look at the news that you would not get at most of your liberal publications across the country. And a writer by the name of, and I believe he pronounces it, Madison Gesiotto. That's quite a last name, but, it's a mouthful. Yeah, it's in the aisle right there by Chef Boyardee. All right, give me your calls and I know what's going to happen there with that. 8:48, Bill Colley with you on Top Story. Now, on a more serious note, he writes, more Americans feel unsafe now than they have in over a decade, with a growing number of them naming national security as the most important problem facing America. Look, we've already had one of these big outbursts just recently in San Bernardino, California. It will not be the last. And he writes about the machete-wielding assailant who targeted customers in a Christian Israeli-owned restaurant in Ohio to the shootings in San Bernardino, it has become clear that Americans cannot afford to wait another year before something is done. That is, President Obama wants to sit back and say, well, I need one of my fellow traveling Marxist-Leninists on the Supreme Court, and then we can take even more of your guns away. This fellow says, look, if the government will do nothing to protect you, you've got to do it on your own. The responsibility, he writes, now lies in the hands of the people to protect themselves and those around them. A rising number of Americans say more concealed weapons would make the country safer, and he writes they are right. Concealed carry permits have been preventing crime, stopping terrorist attacks, saving lives, and making America safer for years. However, only about 5% of America's adult population has concealed carry permits. And he says this is simply not enough. In other words, a few more people out there and a few more people having to guess who's armed before they commit a crime could definitely be a deterrent. And every time I hear, the liberals say, oh, well, all the evidence here that we've cooked up says, did you see the video out of Chicago a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, there's actual video of this. I happened to see it. Two guys go rushing into some shop. It's a, small restaurant or sandwich shop, and they decide to rob the place. But there's a good guy with a gun. Bang, 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 bang. Robbery stopped. One of the bad guys, he's as cold as stone now. He's rotting in the ground. The other bad guy managed to get away, but probably will think about robbing the next shop before he does it. He'll have to think about it twice, 3 times, 4 times, or maybe now he'll decide to go straight after that situation. And yet, you got the folks over there on the left who say, your firearms are bad and you don't have the sense or the brains to take care of it. There was a letter in one of the newspapers here in Idaho yesterday. I was reading through the letters column online, and the writer, this is perfect sarcasm, I guess. Satire is another type of form. Sarcasm was what it was. Someone must have written the paper in the last several days complaining about ranchers who are armed, likely making a reference to what happened in Oregon, but still obviously a little bit annoyed that ranchers perhaps here in Idaho happen to be armed. Well, you never know. Ranches that are 3,000-4,000 acres or more, and if you're out and you're at work someday and you're approached by a 4-legged creature with a lot of teeth and it's drooling and it's angry at you, being armed is not a bad thing. Or if you see something slithering along the ground, then it might be poisonous. Being armed is not a bad thing. But this ninny wrote the newspaper and was all upset that some ranchers happened to be armed. So the response was great. Some writer wrote in and said, well, you know what? We wouldn't have to worry about arming ranchers if we would just turn all of the ranches over to the federal government. And then the federal government could run the ranches and protect us all. Now, there's probably somebody out there thinking, well, that's a bad idea. But that's the point, is the writer was trying to be a little sarcastic about that. And Lefty out there doesn't like it when you throw something back at them and phrase it that particular way. 8:52, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And you can reach the show today. A couple of different ways to do that. First, bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com, bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. The host, who doesn't normally talk about himself in the third person, spells his last name Colley. And also, of course, just giving us a telephone call, 736-0300. I tend to give preference because of the it's a hearing medium, an audio medium, so we tend to give preference to telephone callers over some of the emailers, although sometimes I get some really juicy emails that come in during the course of a morning. Some of them I'm afraid I can't share with you because certain restrictions that the Federal Communications Commission puts on us in the radio business, but it tells me that people out there are just as honked off about what's going on as I am. And then I've got a couple of other quick things, too, that I hoped I could share this morning before our guest comes up in the next hour of the program. First of all, though, I do want to mention, because Kelton, when he is often here, we get talking about hunting and fishing and the like, and sometimes you bring something home that's really, really large and needs to be processed. So we've been recommending high desert meat processing, where they process one animal at a time. What you bring in is what you get back. Darren Van Horn, the owner of High Desert Meat Processing, he's been doing this for nearly 35 years, You can visit High Desert Meat Processing on Facebook, and there are reviews there of customers and sparkling reviews. And we've had a couple of reviews on the telephone, too, people calling us and saying, hey, it's everything that's promised. Give High Desert Meat Processing a call for all of your wild game and domestic processing needs, 734-9949. High Desert Meat does in-house smoking. Nothing gets shipped out. Specialty meats, too, jerky, pepperoni, summer sausage, kielbasa, salami, breakfast sausage, Polish dogs, brats, hot dogs, and more. USDA approved, and Darren works closely with local beef growers and their programs to ensure quality meat. 734-9949. I know this morning it perhaps sounds as if the entire world is spinning out of control around us, and the only sane people are those who are gathered around their radios this morning listening to our show. And you're absolutely right. This comes from National Review today. Black Lives Matter at Cornell. This is a big university, Ivy League university back east, claiming that climate change is racist. Now, here's a thought for you. What if climate change, and it has been changing since long before men were around, at least the scientists tell us that, and even if you think that God created the heavens and the earth, climate has still been changing by God's design. Now, would that mean that God is racist? Or would that potentially mean that, Mother Nature is racist? Well, remember, she doesn't like it when you give her margarine. And you got to be at least 50 to know that reference. But would you say that there are Mother Earth and that perhaps God could be racist because of climate change? The writer Catherine Timp says, according to an article in the Cornell Review, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, Opal Tometi, once again, I don't know who names these people, but obviously they were in the back of the line when names were being handed out, referred to climate change as global anti-blackness, because 6 out of the 10 countries on the top of the climate change vulnerability index are in Africa. Well, yeah, but they've already got deserts there, and every time, you get a couple of tribes that have a civil war together, there's a big famine. And I'm not aware that the Western countries have ever really gotten too much involved in Eritrea and Sudan and Ethiopia. I mean, those people have been going around killing themselves for tens of thousands of years. And the reason they don't have any food to eat is because they go around burning their own fields, and then they have to beg the rest of the world. And to my knowledge, my own country flies all of these great big airplanes over there loaded with all sorts of grains to feed them because they haven't behaved themselves. So what in blazes does that have to do with climate change? I'm sorry. I don't buy the argument. And then it says co-founder Alicia Garza hit some other topics, such as how she would like to retire the phrase black on black crime, and instead, as the paper puts it, focus instead on the violence of the state. Yeah, but what about black on black? Oh, it doesn't happen. Well, there's a couple of gas stations around the country recently that have actual security video that shows people of color perhaps roughing up or killing other people of color. Yeah, well, that must be somebody must have gotten into the video and decided to doctor that up, so it just looks that way, right? That's the explanation they're going to be giving us on all of this. And this goes on. A Marine veteran was eating at a restaurant, I think it was Maryland the other day, and he was just sitting there it was a Burger King, I think. Yeah, Burger King. Sitting there having a hamburger and some French fries, when all of a sudden, a group of young black people approached him and they demanded to know if he thought Black Lives Matter. He just kind of shrugged his shoulders and went back to eating because he just wanted to get his dinner done and leave. When he walked outside, they clubbed him over the head. They knocked him out. They stole his wallet and everything that was inside it. And yes, there is actual video evidence from the security cameras of that. I think U.S. Marines' lives matter. And I think that I would do everything in my power because they protected me to protect them. And you better be dang well happy that I haven't gotten my hands on you for what you've done. In the meantime, Kelton Hatch on the way in just a few minutes. I do want to remind you about our friends at Dream Room Design, where they've been in business now for nearly 20 years. Owner Bill Conant provides hands-on personal attention to each project, overseeing the job from start to finish, and he'll personally come to your home and help you design your dream project. He's also been accredited with an A+ rating by Better Business Bureau. Many times as a homeowner, you'll deal with large companies with offices all over the state, but with Dream Room Design, you get one-on-one personal attention and a relationship throughout the project. You can visit dreamroomdesign.com to find reviews. written and video testimonials, before and after pictures, product videos, and a ton of details about the company and the services provided. Kelton Hatch coming up in the next hour of the program. Bill Colley with you as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com.